The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. The NFL picks, NFL trades, college football, quarterback big board, and World Series. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up in me?
Welcome into an all-new edition of the Sports Stove podcast, presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code STOVE15. You're going to get 15% off your purchase. Welcome in. It's another Wednesday night for those of you who have been anxiously waiting by your computers or phones for the last 15 minutes. Don't worry, we're still here. I'm Vince Stover, joined as I am every week by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good. Looking forward to talking football tonight. I tell you, it's pro and college are both is so much fun because it's so unpredictable at this point. So even where we're at in the season, so.
For sure. Yeah, it's been a fun weeks every week. It seems like something wild has happened. We got lots to discuss in the NFL world. Of course, the World Series is going on, potentially could be over at the end of the night as they have started out there in New York. Dodgers lead the series 3-1. The game, as we are currently recording, is in the bottom of the first 0-0. So, like I said, later tonight, by the time most people listen to this podcast, well, it might be done. So we won't talk a whole lot about the World Series for that reason, because we can get outdated very, very quickly. That being said, Dad, let's get into college football first, and then we'll spend the rest of our time kind of on the NFL and things related to it. The rankings, of course, continue to be pretty similar. Not a lot of changes this week necessarily. Of course, Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State, your top four. Miami, still undefeated, sitting there at 5. Texas, Tennessee, Notre Dame, BYU jumps in, and A&M, Texas A&M now, top 10. Iowa State dropping 1, even though didn't play, still undefeated. Their Indiana's at 13 at 8-0. And Pitt is up to 18 at 7-0. Army is at 21, also at 7-0. Those are your undefeated teams, not in the top 10 this week. So, Dad, anything that you've seen last week that makes you think you know more than you did the week before when it comes to college football?
No, not really at this point, because it's going to be interesting. Part of it's going to get with these undefeated teams. Yeah. That's always been the issue forever. Well, if a guy's undefeated, where should he be? Well, now that there's 12 teams, are we still going to leave undefeated teams out? And again, these teams may not end up being undefeated. So we still got enough of the season left. But I think that makes it kind of interesting. But it's pretty obvious the SEC and the Big Ten are pretty dominant here. And I think will be and probably should be when you talk about the top teams in the playoffs. But again, I think the thing that could make it a little more of a discussion point would be these undefeated teams, if they can stay, undefeated and stay in.
Yeah, I mean, Pitt, if they go undefeated, they'll be in because they're going to beat SMU. They got SMU this week, Clemson in 2 weeks. Then Boston College, Louisville, and Virginia aren't world beaters, but winning against 2 ranked opponents, they'd have to win the conference, of course, as well. Well, if they win the conference, they're in. They're undefeated. They're going to win the conference, which means they're in, right? So them or Miami, those two seemingly locked into the playoffs. Then you look out at the Big 12, where you've got BYU and Iowa State, currently the undefeated teams out there. They're not scheduled to play each other in the regular season, but I would assume they would match up in the championship. And so, again, the winner gets in no matter what, right? So then the question is, does the one-loss team get in? And how many one-loss teams lose out to 2-loss teams. Currently, in that top 16, top 12, excuse me, there's no 2-loss teams. So Alabama's at 14, LSU's at 16, Ole Miss is at 19, and you got Colorado, Illinois, and Missouri who aren't going to make it in as 2-loss teams. So, yeah, I mean, you look at that kind of stuff, that's where it gets interesting, right?
Yes, yeah, it is. And like I said, it'd be interesting this first year. I wouldn't think, just the way it looks right now, that any 2-loss teams will get in. But again, it depends on some of these, teams, and probably even the conference championship games, the loser and how that goes, and how maybe a 2-loss team would look. But, it'd be interesting to see. Clemson, has 1 loss, and where are they ranked now? They're
11.
Yeah. So they're in there, but like you said, that's going to be, they'll probably have to play Miami at least, or Pitt in, championship games. So we'll see.
Yeah. And you look at like the SEC, for instance, you're almost better off to be a 2-loss third place team in the SEC instead of losing in the SEC championship game, in my opinion. Yeah. I think you're safer to be that third team. Right now, you've got Texas A&M, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee as the 4 teams fighting for the SEC. Of course, Tennessee and Georgia do play later on in just a few weeks. And then I think Texas and Texas A&M play the final week of the season, regular season. So, that'll whittle down at least 4 out of those 4 teams, at least 2 of them will be 2-loss teams. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that shakes down. By the way, Texas A&M, are they the quietest top 10 team currently in college football?
Yes. Yeah, I think they are. I mean, the way they're playing, I think they're, they could make a lot of noise here. No doubt about it. We'll see. Of course, a game with Texas would be big, and I'm not sure who else they have. But, they've kind of snuck in there, and with only 1 loss, I think they're in good shape.
Yeah, and they lost to Notre Dame in week 1. Notre Dame has looked a whole lot better since then as well. They beat Missouri when they were a top 10 team. They beat LSU last week, which was a top 10 team. They've got South Carolina, New Mexico State, Auburn, and Texas to close out. So really, it all comes down to that last week, although South Carolina has been an interesting team throughout the season too. There won't be an easy pushover there for sure as well. And then again, Vanderbilt sitting here, they're no longer ranked, but they're above Florida, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Auburn, Kentucky, and Mississippi State in the conference, which is just wild to think, at 8 games in, that's where they're sitting.
Yes, it really is. And, we'll see where Vanderbilt, goes this year with recruiting, and next year and stuff like that. They're definitely going to have a bowl game, and, that'll be big for them too. So we'll see.
Yeah. And then I'm doing some pre-draft rankings at every couple of weeks right now. I came out with the Sports Stove Big Board a couple of weeks ago. I have not updated that recently. That's the top. I think I did top 20 players, maybe top 40 on my big board. And then I'm doing the Sports Stove Quarterback Big Board, getting ready for the draft as well. And plenty of changes on that one. Just a few weeks ago, I had Quinn Ewers up at number 1. He is no longer there. So on my big board now, I've got Cam Ward from Miami sitting number 1, Shedeur Sanders 2. I still got Jalen Monroe 3. I expect that to change here in the near future. But Carson Beck 4, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU, I've got at 5, within Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers, Drew Aller, and Dylan Gabriel rounding out my QB big board right now. Lots has to play out before we get to the draft and figure out the order these quarterbacks are going to go. But right now, I really like Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. I feel like he's probably going to be moving up a little bit, with Monroe moving down possibly some, and even Beck maybe moving down some more as well too. But I think Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders have kind of established themselves as the top 2 right now, clear cuts. Again, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. Someone might jump ahead and establish themselves up there. Dylan Gabriel's playing well in Oregon, but man, I feel like he's been around a long time, and that's not the kind of quarterback that we see go high, number one in the draft necessarily. Maybe more of one of those ceilings, I guess, maybe like what Denver did this year, taking the established guy and a little bit later in the first round and whatnot from there. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll talk about that as the weeks roll on and as we get ready for the NFL draft as well. All right, Dad, let's head into our NFL conversation. Coming off, you've had 3 straight really good weeks for your picks in the pick sixes. You got 5 of your 6 correct this week after 2 straight weeks of undefeatedness going on. So that's exciting times. Overall, I missed 5 total in my complete week 8 picks this year, but I missed like 4 of my pick 6. So not ideal for me this week for sure. Before we get to picks, though, plenty of things happening. Derek Carr is supposed to be back this week in New Orleans. He says he's no savior. Well, that's not a surprise, Derek, but thanks for pointing that out for us. The Colts situation is so crazy. Joe Flacco is now the starter. Anthony Richardson says he got tired, asked to come out for a play, and that's kind of it. I mean, I forget who it was this morning on the radio saying, hey, he lost trust, and it's going to take a while to rebuild that trust in that locker room. I am in shock, Dad. Like, coming into the draft, I said, I don't get it. I don't see what people are seeing in Anthony Richardson. He didn't win in college. It's just not the kind of quarterback you think of. And then he comes in his rookie year before his injury, and he looked really, really good. And I thought, man, I was wrong on this guy. Now we're sitting here looking at him going, what's his problem? Is he just immature? Are there other issues? Can he ever be an NFL starting quarterback again? Is really the question that we're sitting there looking at with Joe Flacco now as the starter in Indianapolis. Your thoughts on that quarterback situation there for the Colts?
Yeah, that was just a real surprise. Like I said, I kind of agree with you. I'm coming out, I wasn't sure Anthony Richardson was a top guy. And he did play well last year, but then he got injured. So he hasn't played a lot yet. I did see where Joe Flacco today said, you just have to remember he really is young. And so I think with his physical ability, I think he can still have a future. It's going to take some mentoring. It's going to take some coaching. He's definitely not ready to play now, just from a maturity standpoint, obviously.
Yeah. He's younger than Shedeur Sanders. So there you go. Take it or leave it, I guess. He is still young, but my goodness, you just can't. You got to know. If you don't know better than that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's got to be so stinking obvious. More injuries. Other receivers have had it rough this year. A lot of receivers going down, getting hurt. A couple more trades here this week as well. Next week is the trade deadline. So we'll actually have our show after the trade deadline next week. It's on Tuesday. So we'll vote in a new president, and we'll have trades all going on the same night. So that'll be a fun time to talk about next Wednesday. We'll break down the election next Wednesday right here on the Sports Stove. Kidding, of course. But anyways, let's talk a little bit about last week. Rams beat the Vikings in really a decent game on Thursday. A lot of fun. From there, the Packers found their kicker finally. 2 straight game-winning field goals for Brandon McManus. Patriots beat the Jets. This is one we got to talk about because, I mean, I understand it's a divisional game. It was in New England, but there's just no reason the Jets should have lost this game, Dad.
No, like I said, going into it, there wasn't. But again, the Jets just aren't functioning as a team. They've had a lot going on. You've had a coach replaced. We're both very familiar with Aaron Rodgers. He does not engender team spirit in a lot of ways, and he has not been able to do that with the Jets from there. And I don't know, he's got some talent around him, but I don't know if his ability is not what it was several years ago. And again, he was injured last year. You got to remember, I guess he's coming back from an injury. But, he can't just drive it all by himself. And I don't think he has the players behind him like he had at Green Bay. So, that just hasn't worked there. And I think it's just going to continue to fall apart as the year goes on. I don't see how it can be salvaged. They may win a few more games. But yeah, we said last week, boy, if they lose to New England, that's going to be something. And that's exactly what it's been. So we will see.
Dad, one word for you. RELAX. Relax, because you're not a Jets fan. So you can relax and not have to worry about the Jets the rest of the year. Listen, it is wild. Aaron Rodgers' ability, even now, I think he's a very talented quarterback. But what we saw the last 3 or 4 years in Green Bay, where he, kind of went LeBron on people. He wanted these players, and the Packers, generally speaking, didn't do what Aaron Rodgers wanted them to do, which is part of the reason he ended up leaving. But the Jets have apparently not told Aaron Rodgers no. He brought in Randall Cobb. He brought in Alan Lazard. He brought in a couple of offensive linemen. He brought in a tight end. He brought in all these guys. And Devontae Adams is, again, an incredible talent. That's definitely the best person they brought in from Green Bay ties, at least, to help out. No doubt about that. But Aaron Rodgers' job needs to be playing football. And he has not just done what he's been told. And listen, he's a great quarterback, especially in his Green Bay days. He was great. But we've seen with Jordan Love that if you play in the system, you can find success. And Rodgers kind of had his own system. And I think that when he left, that freed up LaFleur to show kind of what he could do. Then he goes to New York, and things don't go well. He gets hurt. He brings in Nathaniel Hackett, who had a really tenuous, short tenure in Denver, and now he's not even calling plays anymore. And he gets a coach ultimately fired because he couldn't win. And so now you're sitting here looking at Aaron Rodgers going, what does he bring to New York? And if he can't just play quarterback, he's not a good general manager. And he will, he plays favorites. That's why Alan Lazard's on the team. And so at the end of the day, I think Aaron Rodgers is hurting New York more than he's helping them. He still, I think, has talent. And I think in the right situation, he could still be incredibly successful. We talked, I think, off air. We may have talked on air about this, but San Francisco is still the perfect fit for Aaron Rodgers as it currently sits. They got all kinds of talent. They got a coach that I think he respects, and they're not performing the way that they should, even though they won this week. So anyways, yeah, it's not going to be pretty the rest of the way for the Jets, and we'll see what the offseason holds for them. Lions dominate the Titans, Falcons, and Bucks. Falcons win a close one. Cardinals beat Tua in his return by a point. Browns beat the Ravens, Dad. Jameis stinking Winston. I have been trying to tell you, Dad, all season long. You wouldn't listen to me. He needs to be the starting quarterback. I told Browns fans, you need Jameis Winston. Finally, they give us Jameis Winston, and what do you know? The Browns get a massive win, and Jameis Winston is announced as the starter moving forward. So what do we expect from the Browns? And we'll talk about the games here in a moment, but what do we expect from the Browns the rest of the way out with Jameis Winston at quarterback?
Well, I think they'll do better. I don't, any doubt about that. They've underachieved in a lot of ways. Of course, Nick Chubb's back. I don't know how much to full strength he's back. That will help there. They did trade away a wide receiver, but they still have some wide receiver there and a tight end. I think Winston, will have people behind him. I don't think they're going to make any big rally, as far as the playoffs or anything like that. But I think he can and should give Cleveland a breath of fresh air rather than this season just being, a total disaster and what in the world is going on, because they had high hopes. So I think Winston can not have a good year, and I think he can establish himself as Cleveland's quarterback in the future.
Oh, there we go. quarterback of the future, Jameis Winston. That'd be intriguing. I'm for it. I thought the Saints were crazy to get rid of him. There are teams out there that need quarterbacks that aren't Cleveland too, that might go, hey, why wouldn't we bring in Jameis Winston? If you're the Colts, why wouldn't you bring in Jameis Winston? If you're Carolina, I think Winston's better than Dalton, in my personal opinion. There's some options out there for sure. Chargers beat the Saints, Bills beat the Seahawks, Broncos beat the Panthers, Chiefs barely over the Raiders, 49ers beat the Cowboys. But Dad, the Commanders, they're not putting up a ton of points, but they're winning football games and get it on the Hail Mary. What an ending that Chicago-Washington game was. And Washington just kind of sitting up there atop the East right now, looking pretty solid.
They are. Like I said, are they, a mature enough team? Again, they've got a coach that knows what he's doing. So we will see. Philadelphia is going to be the issue. They played better here last week. And so, we will see how Washington does, but again, they've got talent and the quarterback has played great. And, they're like I said, they've got other talent to go with it. And I think the coach, they've got things going in the right direction. And again, the division probably is going to help them out a little bit there too. So,
yeah, I mean, at the very least, making the playoffs, right? So there's that. I mean, you're looking at a wild card at the very least, probably right now. They're above everybody in the West, above everybody in the South. So yeah, they're looking good the rest of the way. All right, let's get into picks for this week, Dad. Thursday night, the aforementioned Jets are hosting the Houston Texans. Jets are 2-point favorites at home. And, this is setting up to just be a media circus, meaning that the Jets win and everybody who's been bashing Rodgers is now praising Rodgers. And be careful. This happened in Green Bay and all of a sudden they went on this massive win streak and all this kind of baloney. But I mean, I'm going Texans on Thursday. I have to. I can't pick the Jets ever again. So if you lose to Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots, it's one thing if you lose to an up-and-coming rookie you haven't had a chance to study, but Jacoby Brissett, yeah, okay. Anyways, Texans, give me Texans over Jets. How you feeling about Thursday night?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I have no confidence in the Jets, and I do think Houston's a good team. So again, they've had an injury. They have had some injuries on the wide receiver front, but again, they've got running backs, they've got a mature quarterback, they've got a good defense. I don't see any reason they can't go in and have the Jets just don't have. I mean, I don't see where the positiveness is going to come, from the start of the game. I mean, they're going to holler and rah for just a little bit, but I mean, I just don't see Houston falling apart. And I would definitely pick the Texans in this one.
Yeah, Diggs out is painful for sure for Houston, but they did it without him last year, and they still got the other guys around. So, I mean, yeah, Houston's a really good football team, and they should win this weekend, this Thursday game against the Jets. But like I said, if they don't, if for some reason the Jets win, all of a sudden you're going to hear a bunch of hoopla that's just going to be unnecessary. All right, Sunday night is Colts and Vikings. Is that correct?
No, it's the Eagles and the Jaguars.
So ESPN says differently. ESPN has it Colts Vikings on Sunday night. I had it as well as Eagles and Jaguars. But that's not true. So it's Colts Vikings, Dad.
Oh, okay. I was just going by the schedule here and how they had them listed. So
yeah, Colts Vikings on Sunday night, and Vikings are at home, 5-point favorites in this game. How are you feeling about Colts versus Vikings? I don't know if you're planning on that one or not.
I would go with the Vikings over the Colts again. I think the Vikings. I don't. the Vikings are slipping some, but again, I think they're a better team at this point, and they're at home. So I would go with the Vikings.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that as well. And at home, especially, the defense has been good. Joe Flacco, listen, I know he had good games with Cleveland last year. He's looked decent in performances with Indianapolis this year, but I'm not a Joe Flacco believer at this point in his career. And I think Minnesota's the better team. So I'll go Minnesota as well. We are in agreement so far on our picks this week. Texans on Thursday night, Vikings on Sunday night. And then on Monday night, it is the Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dad, are you all aboard the Baker train, or are we abandoning the train this week and going with Kansas City?
Well, I think Kansas City's still rolling, and Tampa's good, but it's at Kansas City. Kansas City is going to lose one here down the line, but it's hard for me to pick against them the way they're playing here, no doubt about it. So,
well, yeah, the Chiefs or the Buccaneers are beat up. So are the Chiefs, but they've made some trades as well. You're looking at the Chiefs' schedule. They got another 2 straight weeks. They got Bucks this week, Broncos next week. Then they go to Buffalo, but then they got Carolina and Las Vegas. I mean, Chiefs are not going to lose a whole lot of games this year, and I do not see them losing this week to Tampa, especially with Evans and Godwin hurt. I don't see that happening either. All right, so there's our 3 primetime games this week. We're in agreement on those 3. Now we pick 3 games of our own choosing. Dad, who's your game number 4 this week?
I'll take Buffalo over Miami. I think that's a fairly safe pick. And Miami may be coming back a little bit, but Buffalo at home, and Buffalo's playing well. And I think they can continue to solidify that division. So I'll take Buffalo over Miami.
Yeah, I think so. I think Tua's back, but I think he's probably playing a little bit more careful as well. Miami's going to look a lot better over these next couple of weeks than they have up to this point of the season. But at Buffalo, I think that's a fair pick for sure. Dad, I'm going to go with Baltimore. They're at home also. They're playing Denver this week. Denver has been surprisingly decent up to this point. The Ravens have had moments where you sit there and go, what are they doing? Like losing to the Browns this week. I just don't think that they lose 2 weeks in a row to teams they shouldn't lose to. So I'm going to go Baltimore at home. Your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think that's a good pick there. But again, it's iffy as I looked at that because Denver surprised a lot of people. You would think Baltimore, after losing, will come back strong, and they're at home. But that game would scare me just a little bit, but I would pick Baltimore.
All right. Game number 5 for you this week.
This is a scary one, but I'm going to take the Bengals over the Las Vegas
Raiders. Yeah.
Again, the Bengals should win, but the Bengals should have won a couple games here, and they haven't. But again, Las Vegas is not good, and so they're at home. Cincinnati loses this one. Things are really, really. It's already not positive here in the Cincinnati area.
Yeah,
but I'll go with Cincinnati over the Raiders.
Yeah, I was going to pick that one, but with our picks being so similar, the first 3 I won't for pick 6. But I agree with you. I'm a little bit more confident than you are on that one. Bengals should definitely beat the Raiders at home. Better team overall, definitely better quarterback. I know they've had their issues, but I think the Bengals should definitely win that game there. All right, I am going to go with, these are some hard choices this week, Dad. I'm going to go Philadelphia over Jacksonville. Eagles at home. Again, they're the better team. Jacksonville kept it close, come back, and made the Packers win on a field goal. But, man, Jacksonville just has not been playing well. And the Eagles, I think, are one of the top 3 teams in the NFL right now. So I'm going to go Eagles over Jacksonville.
Yeah, I had that one, of course, thinking it was a Sunday night game. So, but that is the safest pick. So if it's all right to pick the same game, I will go with the Eagles over Jacksonville. That's the safest of the bunch. I've got another one I'd be taking a chance on. So, we'll go with Philadelphia.
Okay. So for my last one, then I'm choosing between New Orleans over Carolina or Washington over the Giants. Both of those are division games, which make it a little bit more scary. And I don't trust Arizona over Chicago quite enough. Those are the kind of things that I'm looking at right now. Washington has been good. They had, I'm going to go New Orleans. New Orleans over Carolina. Carolina's really, really bad. So when in doubt, pick against the really, really bad teams. I'll go Saints over Carolina. Your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I didn't pick up until later today as far as the quarterback being back for New Orleans. So I had picked Carolina because they can surprise a little bit. They may have their running back there for the first time this week. So I'll go ahead and stay with that and leave my pick with Carolina, but not real confident on that. But because the Saints have not been good, but again, that may all change with Derek Carr.
And if they lose this game, their coach is fired. I don't think there's any question about that. If New Orleans loses to Carolina, new coach in New Orleans. All right, let's run through the rest of the games. Washington, New York. Washington, again, has been really good. The Giants, I just don't think they've been as bad as their record. They still haven't been good, obviously, but Washington's 4-point favorite. They've been the better team so far this year. I like Washington in this one.
Yes, yeah, I agree with that. I would take Washington on that.
Chargers travel to Cleveland. Chargers are 1.5-point favorites, Dad. I've been picking Chargers pretty much all season. But I'm a Jameis Winston guy, so I can't preach Jameis Winston and not pick him. So I'll go Cleveland here at home over Los Angeles.
Yeah, I go with Cleveland too. I think a little bit of momentum, and they're in the dog pound. And so yeah, I'd like to see Cleveland win, so I would pick them.
Okay. Atlanta is hosting Dallas. Atlanta, a 2.5-point favorite. Atlanta's 5-3, Dallas 3-4 coming into this game. Dallas losing to San Francisco this past week. Dallas cannot afford to lose any more games, really moving forward. And Atlanta's going to be a tough one at home. So I'm going to go Atlanta at home in this one.
Yeah, this was the other game I almost picked, and I would go with Atlanta. Again, Dallas can show up, but I think Dallas is just about done here. And the Falcons were playing a lot better. And, the Falcons could win and could win big. And if Dallas keep losing, you talk about coaches not being around, that that's going to happen sooner or later.
Okay. How about this nail biter? Tennessee and New England. This goes in the category of games I could care less about. I'll pick New England because I think Tennessee's second worst team in the league to Carolina. So New England, I guess, on the road against Tennessee. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I would go with New England too. And like you said, I don't think this will garner a lot of interest. It may, from those quarterbacks you were talking about a little bit ago in college, they may be paying attention to games like this and seeing where they're going to be playing next year. So
very true. Let's go Green Bay and Detroit. Right now, Jordan Love is saying he thinks it's realistic that he can play. I don't think Green Bay trots Jordan Love out for this game. I just don't think that I don't think it's smart to trot Jordan Love out for this game. Bye week next week. Let them rest. Either way, they are at home. Detroit's 6-1. Green Bay 6-2. This is a big division game. And if they don't, if Green Bay loses this game, that puts them in a bad spot as far as the division goes. But I think they're still in a great spot for the wild card. So I don't know. You tell me your thoughts on Green Bay and Detroit. I think Detroit wins this game, Dad. But you give me your thoughts on Green Bay, Detroit.
Well, I think, again, with Detroit's played better, no doubt about it. They're one of the top teams right now, definitely in the NFC. Green Bay, again, this is a big game. It's at home. And again, we'll see. LaFleur has done a masterful job so far as being able to, set things up. And, is Jordan Love going to play? I don't know. I listen to a lot of radio stuff from up in Green Bay, and you hear people on the radio going both ways. No, he shouldn't play. LaFleur said that if he can go, he'll go. I heard people today say he's just trying to get Detroit to, have to scheme for Love and I think there is confidence with Malik Willis that he can be competitive in this game. I think the biggest thing for Green Bay is going to be the injuries on defense. If they're missing two guys in the backfield, the cornerback and the safety, that's going to be rough no matter who the quarterback is. I'm not convinced that Jordan Love's not going to play because this is a big game. And, again, if he feels and the medical staff feels like he really is okay, then I think definitely he will. But I don't think they're worried about going into this with Malik Willis. Again, everybody likes gamesmanship, but I don't believe Green Bay will be waiting till the warm-ups to decide this. I think, they will know long before which way they're going on this one. And, I think Green Bay has a chance. Being a Packer fan, I'm going to have to go with, I think the Lions are a little confident, a little, arrogant when it comes to Green Bay. It's getting to be where, hey, they can walk in there and win, and they can walk in there and bring all their fans and that type of stuff. And, that's not setting well. So we'll see. I'll pick Green Bay, but will I be shocked if the Lions win this one? Unfortunately, no.
All right. So yes, I mean, to say that they can compete, I would think we'd all agree with that. But you finally got to the pick. So, I mean, Detroit's just playing better right now. Green Bay has played well. I love Green Bay. But I really think they need to go Malik Willis this week, and maybe that's enough to change things over. But I just think right now where we're at in the season, I think Detroit's the better team at the moment, and so I go Detroit in this one. Seattle will host Los Angeles in the battle of teams in the NFC West, which is such a tight battle right now. 3 teams at 4-4, and then the Rams at 3-4. So whoever wins this game could possibly be in first, and the loser will be in last, no matter what. So, which way do you go with the Rams and the Seahawks right now? Because neither of these teams.
Yeah, it's a great question. Which Ram team's going to show up? That's all the whole issue. I'm going to pick the Rams, but it's at Seattle, so Seattle could come out and just dominate this. So you just don't know, but some reason I feel like the Rams, have the better shot at this.
Yeah, I'll go Seattle because they are at home. If the Rams were at home, I'd consider them, but I'll go Seattle at home in this one. Last game we haven't talked about, Arizona hosting Chicago. Neither of these teams have been great. They also haven't been horrible either. So when you look at this right now, I'd like very little about this game. I'll go Arizona. And I think they're I don't know. I don't think anything. I don't know anything with this game, Dad. I don't like Chicago, so I'm going to go Arizona in this game. What about you?
Yeah, I think Arizona at home. Arizona has been surprising. Chicago has definitely played better. They have quite the defense, no doubt about that. But and again, maybe it's just because I would rather see Arizona win and Chicago lose. But we will see. But I will pick Arizona in this one.
I also think Chicago has some drama going on, and I think there's going to be a lot of finger pointing, coaches, players at coaches, coaches at players, players at players. This doesn't seem like a team that necessarily gets along great. So I think that's a problem, and I think Arizona has a little bit more hope in the building right now than Chicago does. So I'll stick with that one for now. Okay, anything else NFL-wise that we need to discuss?
Nope, I believe that's about it. Should be another very interesting week. A lot of things up in the air. So,
yeah, for sure. The NBA is in full bloom at this point. Dad, your Boston Celtics are getting slaughtered at the moment in the third quarter. That could all change in the fourth by the Pacers, by the way. We don't talk a lot of basketball on this show, especially NBA basketball, so we'll move on. NHL, Dad, they're still skating, I believe, still playing hockey these days. Anything we need to know about with hockey?
No, they are. The Predators have looked a little bit better, so that's been encouraging for me there. They won a few in a row and got 1 point last night, so we'll see if that continues to go. There's been, some injuries already a little bit in hockey, and that happens. So, a little early to see what direction it's going. But no, I think the NHL seems to be garnered a lot of interest and seems to be doing well again.
The Anaheim Ducks uniforms look amazing. Incredible. Going back, kind of old school logo there. They look great. And it's always a surprise to me when I see Utah sitting there in the NHL too, that they have a team is I have to be reminded of that on a pretty consistent basis as well. Speaking of surprising, Michael Jordan won a NASCAR race. Well, kind of. He's the owns the car. Tyler Reddick with a big win. Really fun race in Miami this week. And I really wish it was the championship race and not Phoenix. But nonetheless, that's how we sit. But we go into one more playoff race in Martinsville this week before the championship race in Phoenix. So the final cut down will happen after the race this weekend. As well, and all the playoff guys, well, really 3 of them have to win in order to make it through. The other, Larson could still point in if everything goes his way. In my opinion, at least that's how I see it as it currently sits also. Okay, I don't think I missed anything, Dad, but anything else we need to cover? I can't think of anything else.
Nope, I think that'll do it. Again, a lot going on. We'll have a lot to talk about next week, and again, we'll see where the NFL shakes down with trades. So,
yeah, and as we're recording right now, Yankees up 4-0 in the third. So just for the sake of those who listen tomorrow morning, we'll take 2 quick cuts. First of all, wow, Dodgers win the World Series last night. That was crazy. And then second cut is with the Yankees pulled it off going into game 6 now. This is going to continue to be a fun series. All right, there you go. We got our baseball talk in as well. We will conclude the World Series when it is done. We will recap it and look back. Yankees obviously not going away at the moment, but all things could change very quickly, even tonight, to end the series if that goes down. Okay, tomorrow night, Thursday night, 8 p.m. on the Sports Stove YouTube channel will be the Sports Stove local hour, or maybe this week it's the international hour. That's right. Toronto Argonauts punter Jeremy Edwards will join the show around 8:30 tomorrow night. EKU linebacker Maddox Marcellus will join the show around 8:10. Me and Jonathan Duff will be recapping the win from this past weekend and previewing a massive game this week for EKU football. It's going to be a great time chatting with Maddox and Jeremy. Also, Jeremy's always been a great guest when he was at EKU. Now he's in the CFL, living his best life. So that'll be a real fun interview. Make sure you tune in for that tomorrow, Thursday, on the Sports Stove, a local hour. You can get that anywhere you get the Sports Stove podcast. So on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube as well. Make sure you go check out righteousfelon.com. Use the code STOVE15. You're going to get 15% off your jerky purchase. You will not regret it. Follow us on social media at Sports Stove. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.